Hey friends, recently I realized I've been feeling very exhausted and grumpy all the time. I realized that I had been spreading myself thin by saying yes to many things, and I wanted to get to the root cause of this. And I stumbled upon a book called The Art of Saying No by the author Damian Zahariades. After applying the techniques in this book, I realized the power behind the simple word called no, and I want to share this insight with you guys. So let's go. Why is it difficult for us to say no? We live in a society where saying no is seen as rude and egocentric. It has become so much ingrained in our life, we see it as a value from childhood all the way to adulthood. I'm sure all of us would have come across this kind of situations at some point in our lives. A fellow colleague or friend comes seeking for our help and we sincerely cannot help them, we decline them with a heavy heart. But this ends up with the other person being angry or disappointed with us. And we hate to cause disappointments, and this ends up making us feeling guilty as if we did something wrong. But after listening to this book, I realized that we might have done nothing wrong. It is simply the other party's inability to accept rejections or manage their expectations. This kind of thinking made me realize that we are simply not responsible for the other party's reaction when we decline their request sincerely, and it is out of our control. So now we know why is it difficult to say no. How do we say no effectively then? So in this book, the author teaches us to be assertive when we are saying no. Like every other skill, being assertive is a learned skill. So being assertive simply means that having the confidence to express our point of view even though if it contradicts someone else's point of view. It simply means that not seeking validation just to appear valuable. An example of this might be when a fellow colleague or friend comes seeking for our help on a subject matter that we are an expert on. At that point of time, if we are swamped with work and we cannot help them out, we decline the offer respectfully and sincerely explain to them why we cannot do it. Our friend might be a persuasive one. He or she might entice us to helping them out. But if we really cannot help them out, being assertive at this point of time is standing our ground, explaining to them we just simply cannot help them out. And the author also explains the difference between being assertive and also being aggressive. Being aggressive simply means responding to the requester in a hostile manner without even explaining why we cannot do it. So being assertive reduces the chances of the other party being resentful towards us when we decline their requests. If there's one main key takeaway from this book, I would say that it made me realize that we cannot make everyone happy. The difficulty in saying no to the things that we do not want to do simply stems from not acknowledging that we are not responsible for our requester's disappointment. We just don't want to come off as a selfish jerk. But every time we spread ourselves thin by saying yes to every single request that comes along our way, we are simply saying no to somebody else, and that someone is ourselves. By simply putting our agendas below somebody else's is a wrong thing to do. I think we just have to come to terms with ourselves, knowing that there are 7 billion people on this earth and we cannot simply make everyone happy. And in this book, they say it beautifully. Self-care is not selfish, it is necessary. To effectively say no, in this book, they teach us to understand the illusion of value. By appearing valuable to someone, it makes us feel good by doing it. An example I realized after listening to this book is that years ago when I started my practice, I used to skip my lunch to see patients throughout. The rationale behind this is that I simply cannot let my sick patients wait for me while I fill my tummy. And usually past the lunch hour mark, I get grumpy at my staffs and I quickly stopped this behavior and started taking my lunch break afterwards. And then I realized that my patients were still waiting for me and I wasn't getting grumpy at all. And it dawned upon me that there will be always people seeking for knowledge and resources and help all the time if we let it be. As how the cabin crew explains when we board a plane, that we have to put oxygen mask on ourselves first before we can provide it to our loved ones. By appearing valuable simply by neglecting self-duty is a wrong thing to do. Understanding this word FOMO or fear of missing out is a crucial thing to effectively say no. We as human beings have been hardwired since ancient times to understand scarcity around us. But nowadays there are opportunities all around us, but yet social media and certain technology reinforces this feeling inside ourselves. An example of myself is that I love to look at making passive income, and because of this fear of missing out, I used to say yes to every single opportunity that came along the way, and I ended up overwhelming myself. And I stumbled upon these famous words of Mr. Warren Buffett. He says that the difference between successful people and very successful people is that the very successful people usually say no to almost everything. I'm not at the level of Mr. Warren Buffett yet, but nowadays whenever an opportunity that comes along my way, I will usually end up delaying saying yes to it as much as possible to suppress this so-called FOMO of mine. So I will carefully analyze, pick and choose the right one for me so that it doesn't overwhelm me. And here are some tips on the art of saying no by Damian Zahariades. The author explains that when it comes to saying no, be direct, honest and respectful to the party when they're requesting. Don't stall for time, don't bargain for time when we know the outcome is declining the request. This avoids wasting the requester's time and also avoids them being more resentful towards us. We should change the way we say no. We can avoid using the dreaded word no, and an example of this might be when a fellow colleague comes asking for our help, and at that point of time, if we are busy, we cannot help them out, we can simply tell them that we are involved in a high-level project and we have a deadline to meet, and we will let many people down if we do not do it. This will reduce the impact of the requester's disappointment when we say no to them. Do not give false excuses. I have been in this road many times. In order to avoid disappointing the other party, I come up with lame excuses telling them why I cannot do it. But it is a game of Russian roulette if the requester is persistent, because you end up giving lame excuses after lame excuses until you are cornered, coming up as an unworthy and unreliable person. Offer an alternative. If you know somebody that can help them out with a particular task, if you are swamped with work or you do not have the time, tell it to them that there might be somebody else who might be available that can help them out. Guide them to the other person. And if you would like to help, break down the task into smaller parts and choose the part that you can help them with. And the author reminds us that this is not an obligation to do, it is simply you being nice and polite to them. Are you a people pleaser? In this book, the author explains that this habit is one of the main reasons we cannot say no and usually stems from low self-esteem. I took a pop quiz that was provided in this book and I realized my scores were off the charts and I seriously have to do something about it. If you would like to do this quiz as well, I've shared a PDF file in the description box below. Feel free to check them out and share your scores. As an introvert, I always try to say yes to many things in life, trying to fit in, until I came across this beautiful book called Quiet. It explains the introvert-extrovert ideal perfectly. An interesting quote from this book is that no one will protect our time and interest. We are the only ones who can protect our time and interest. Feel free to check out this video if you'd like to know more about it. So till then, take care, see you all, bye bye.